Welcome to Mountain Man Explore the Truth. How's everybody doing today or tonight, depending on time you're listening to the podcast? I hope you are doing well, my friends. I am excited about bringing on Mark P. He tells me about an experience he had back in 2016. I'm not going to go into much detail because I'd rather just bring it on and be the first time hearing his encounter and experience. And then going back, and I think I might have heard of his back in, I think it was on Sasquatch Chronicles. I'll have to ask him when he comes on because I swear I heard this story from somebody or somewhere, and I can't wait to hear about it. He tells me about a sighting he had back in 2016 at his home in North Idaho, and they called it the Old Man of the Woods, and he said it was a white one too, so that's very interesting. And they known it as the HooDoo holler, making a known unnerving howls, which is very interesting, guys. I can't wait to bring him on to talk about it. I don't want to go too long and telling you what he wrote in here. I'd rather him just come on and tell you guys about it. I'm pretty sure you heard about him. He even wrote a book about it, so be sure to reach out to him and get a book. So if you'd like to come on the show, reach out to me, guys. I'll bring you on. Come on, and I'll bring you on. I got a calendar I'll be posting on Facebook, so you can. I'll even email to you if you're not using Facebook. So email me at mountmanett@gmail.com. And if you really do want to come on the show, just put in there what your experience was and let me know when you're available. Or if anything, I'll send you the calendar and you can pick the day you want. So I hope to hear from you soon, my friends, and I hope you enjoyed Mountain Man Explore the Truth. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, or watching, I should say, or listening to on other platforms, make sure you hit that follow button and make sure you rate it. And be sure to subscribe on YouTube, guys. It really does help the show, bring it up in the charts so other people come on and share their encounter with you. Thanks for listening, guys, and stay tuned. Here we go. I'll be bringing a guest on. Thank you. Today we welcome on Mark Beek. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's an honor to have you on here. I'm looking forward to hearing about your book and your experience, and where did it all start for you? Where did it all begin?
Well, it began in North Idaho in a town called Spirit Lake. We bought a property there, private road, surrounded by state land, at the base of a mountain called HooDoo Mountain. HooDoo Mountain is famous for what they call the HooDoo howler, which is Bigfoot. But there's also the Old Man of the Woods, which is a white Bigfoot that's been spotted in the area. And a lot of eerie things happen on HooDoo Mountain. They see lights. We actually seen some lights in the sky that don't fit airplanes and whatnot. But we didn't move there for that reason. It just happened to be that's where we lived. And it was August of 2016, a pretty bad fire year. We didn't have any fires like right on us, but the smoke from all the fires around us were filtering in, and we had a lot of animal action that we didn't normally have because they were being run out from the fire. And so one morning, walking my dog, who never growled in her life, she'd bark at you, but she'd never growl. We're walking, and the property next to us was vacant, and it was for sale. And she stops and she looks up at the vacant property and she starts growling. And I'm like, what in the world? I look over there, is this what I thought was a guy standing in the field, wearing a white hoodie. And I'm thinking, well, it's August. It's freaking hot. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's already, like 89 degrees out.
Yeah,
And
keep
I'm
toasty in
going, well,
that.
that's, yeah, I was, I'm an ex-police officer, so you kind of go through this, through the checklist of what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, if that's a guy, he's awful tall because the grass in that field was over 4 feet high, and this
Wow.
thing was 4 feet above that.
Whoa.
And I said, well, that can't be a guy. Oh, it's a bear. It's an albino bear. That's what it is, because it's got hair. I can see the hair now. I'm looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
We're only looking at about 45 yards away. And it's looking at me, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, well, it doesn't have a bear snout. It's kind of a flat face. About that time, I realized this is the Old Man of the Woods. This is the Sasquatch, you know. And so I reached for my camera on my cell phone, and of course my phone was off. And by the time I fiddled with that, he yelled at me. He actually yelled at me and took off running. It was like a "Ah!" and took off running. It wasn't like I'm coming to get you. It's like, holy crap, my
Startled
plans
you.
are ruined. Yeah. And so it took me a few minutes to kind of, you know, get with what I actually saw. Well, I had a neighbor who used to do like that, like Blackwater security type stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I called him on the phone and asked him if he'd seen anything or anything weird happen, and he was like, "Well, the dogs wouldn't go out this morning, and when I pushed them out, they ran back in, and the horses were going crazy, and they never do that." And I said, "Well, let's go take a look." So we went over there. Now in North Idaho, it doesn't rain from about the middle of June until fall. So the ground gets really hard baked, and we couldn't find any tracks or uh, anything that would be definitive, except um, the driveway is a gravel driveway, and the people selling the house have put fresh gravel down in the driveway. It's about 12 feet wide. On one side of the driveway, there was an indentation in the gravel about, I don't know, 18 inches. And then there was another one on the other side, just those two. And then they had a T-post fence, a metal T-post fence, and it had been bent flat to the ground. So it ran and didn't jump over the fence. He squashed it. So uh, that was the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That was the
Sounds
beginning of
impressive
the
right there.
adventure. Yeah, it was, so my neighbor says, "Hey, listen, I got this old game camera. I'm gonna let you use it." Um, it's the kind of game camera that actually had the flash. It wasn't like
Oh,
the infrared stuff we have now.
yeah.
And so our property, we had 5 acres, and we're surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of acres of state land. And 4 of our acres were elevated, and 1 acre was down low. And so the game would come up between the two property lines. It'd come from the bottom up and cross over into the state land. So I took the game camera, and on the high side, I reached it up as high as I could get. So, probably 8, 9 feet up. But on the other side, we're talking, at least 12 feet because of the slope. And I waited for, you know, a week or so, and I'd put the camera on a three picture cycle. So it would go click, click, click when it sent something.
Mm-hmm.
So after about 7, 10 days, I go check the memory card, and there's 12 pictures. I was okay.
Wow.
So I'm looking at it, and the first two pictures was just trees. But the third picture, there was a curve like this on the bottom, almost like the top of a head. Okay. The next picture was more of that curve. The next picture was like shoulders, a head and a shoulder, almost exactly like you'd think of Sasquatch, no neck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Then and there was no definition, because whatever this thing was light in color, and the thing I saw was white, right? So the flash is refracting off of this fur, and we're not getting any detail. In the next picture, it's completely closed, it's completely white. And then there was a picture, it looked like this, like something was turning to go. Now
Mm-hmm.
remember, that camera is 12 feet up on that side. So if that's an
Yeah,
arm, that's pretty tall.
that's pretty big.
Then the next thing we see looks like a hand coming over the camera, like it's trying to figure out what it is. And then that was it. Um, we could not get any definition on the picture. Trying to be uh, realistic. On one hand, I'm like, well, that's got to be the Bigfoot we saw,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it was an owl. But it is, owls don't have this
Yeah.
look. You know, um, and these kinds of things went on through all the way into the fall. Um, we'd sleep at night with our windows open, because it'd be 110 degrees during the day, but at night it drops down to 45. It's comfortable sleeping weather, and we'd hear the hoodoo howler, the every once in a while up on the mountain. And long about September, we were doing some renovations to the house, and Uh, I had to roll my compound miter saw to the back of the house on a couple pieces of plywood because the ground's pretty rocky. And it's a real windy day. And I'm working at the saw and I hear this noise, thunk, 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 something landing on the plywood. And I'm just thinking the wind's blowing pine cones out of the trees. I didn't think anything of it. So I'm cutting wood, passing it into the house. And a little while later, I'm getting ready to cut a board. Now I'm facing that bottom area. And I reach up to grab my miter saw and I see something coming at me from the bottom. And it I'm thinking it's a bird because it's about that size, it's about bird size. And it's coming from about 150 yards out, but it's not flapping its wings. It's just
Mm-hmm.
coming. And I'm watching it. As it gets closer, I realize it's not a bird, it's a rock. It's a rock about the size, you know, maybe 3 pounds, 3 pounds. And it flies over my head and it lands on the plywood and it goes thunk, 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 thunk. And I look and there's another rock about that same size sitting on the plywood.
Wow.
So, and I'm looking down in the bottom. I can't see anything because where it came from, we had a clearing down in the bottom, but then it's tall trees everywhere. It came from behind the trees. So whatever that threw that, it had a heck of an arm
Oh yeah.
and pretty accurate. That put two rocks within a couple feet of each other at that distance. Now, at the time, I was working with a frozen food delivery company, and my territory was up close to the Canadian border. And there, one of my customers was a farmer, and they gave me a bunch of fruit and stuff. My
Mm-hmm.
wife cans and makes jams and whatnot. But we had about 50 pears and apples that had gone bad, too bad to can. So I said, why don't we put that out in the yard and see if anything comes in for it? We had been landscaping the yard to try to level it out because it's very hilly. So we had this little island of grass surrounded by this ring of dirt that was maybe 10 foot wide. And I figured if we put all the apples and stuff on that island of grass, something's going to walk across that dirt and leave tracks. Because it's now we're talking, it's late September, early October. It's starting to rain a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting that dirt's getting a little bit squishy. So we put them out, and I know my shift stopped. My last day of work during the week was Thursday, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday I'm off. So Thursday night we put them on the island of grass. Friday morning nothing. Saturday morning nothing. I go out Sunday morning, have a cup of coffee. I'm looking, and every one of those apples and pears are gone. 50 of them gone. And I look around. There's not a single animal track in that dirt.
Wow.
And I don't know of any birds that fly at night that are going to eat 50 apples, you
Yeah.
know. And so whatever came in and got them jumped over that dirt onto that island of grass and jumped back. And so that was kind of interesting. But one of the things, as far as the book is concerned, I started writing things down, and I said, there's a story here. And with the fires that we had a lot of firefighters staying at the hotel that I stayed up in Bonners Ferry. And I walked up to them and I'd buy them pizzas off the truck,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd said, when you guys are out there fighting fires and animals are running around, do you guys see anything kind of strange? And they're like, yeah, we see a lot of stuff that people wouldn't believe, but we don't talk about it.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
that, and he says there's a lot of places that they can't get to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can hike up in there if you wanted to, but you're not going to take a fire crew in there.
Yeah,
He says,
real quick, Mark. I'm from the Northwest, like Oregon. I'm up.
yeah,
I lived around Mount Hood all my life, and I moved from there to Texas, Southeast Texas. And I'll tell you what, there was incredible stories I was hearing from loggers, and these fires that would happen, that people see these strange things walking up on two legs, and they don't even want to believe what they saw. They tell me about it. Like,
mhm.
I don't know if I saw that or not, but I saw something. And I go, well, I think you saw a Bigfoot. you know. So
Well,
yeah.
you go through that process of elimination.
Hmm.
You go through like I did. It's a man, no, it's a bear, no, it ain't even one of those. It's got to be something else.
Yeah.
So and I've always been very big into like the Native American culture,
Oh yeah.
um, some of the stories that they've told, and I started researching that in the area, and there's a lot of native lore tied to Bigfoot in that area. Uh, they have a different name for the Bigfoot. They call it Siatko, which is the tribe that lives in the woods. They looked at it as another tribe of Native
Hmm.
Americans, um, and they had a an understanding with the tribe that if they had to encroach on their property, that they would leave them an offering. So if they were hunting and they shot a deer and it went on their property, they'd leave part of the deer for them. That type. It was a respect. You know,
Yeah, it's like a peace
um,
deal.
exactly, exactly. So all that's in the book. I've got a lot of historical references, stories. A matter of fact, the opening stories is I changed the names, but a prospector who uh, met his fate at the base of Hoodoo Mountain, uh, because the account is that the Bigfoot thought that he was destroying the mountain, which gold prospecting in the old days was pretty destructive. So there's that. The I had a customer when I was talking to him about the book I was writing. He goes, "That's interesting." He says, "My grandfather built fire towers all over North Idaho, and he says he was contracted to build a tower on Scotchman's Peak. Now, Scotchman's Peak is a, a hike for the brave. It's very strenuous. Mountain goats are up there, and people run into them all the time. And this is, probably the 1930s, 1940s, I'm guessing. And he had a team of horses that would drag his aluminum camper up to where he was going to build the fire tower. And he built a rope corral for his horses, and he was telling me his granddad was in the camper one night and heard the horses going crazy. He figured a bear, right? So he grabs his pistol, opens the door, and looks, and he sees this creature standing at the horses. He said it was 10 feet tall. It
Wow.
wasn't a bear. It was he. At first, he thought it was a man, but it was too big. And he was covered with hair, and then he looked at his gun and realized he didn't have enough gun, and that this wasn't going to do anything. So he went back in the camper to get a rifle. And when he went back in the camper started getting pummeled with boulders, basketball sized boulders and bigger.
Wow.
And they actually smashed his camper to the point where he couldn't get out the door. Um, and so the next morning, everything calmed down. He crawled out a window and he took pictures uh, of the camper and these boulders everywhere. And the guy had them. He showed them to me. Um, so that story's in the book. It's kind of a mix of fiction and actual events.
Yeah.
So
I like that
uh,
because I've gotten this book on a while back. My wife bought this for me. It's from Tom Lyles, and this one has
cool.
all kinds of interesting stories too. I don't know if some of it's true, but it's similar to actual experience people had. So
Hmm.
that's one I found interested and was reading a little bit here and there at night before bed. And oops, sorry about that. And I'll have to definitely get your book. So
Yeah. Well, I'll get you a signed copy.
okay.
I'm funny when I'm reading a book. I don't want to get slowed down, so I like when I was writing this book. It's a fast read. Um,
Oh, I
it's
like
not a,
that.
it's,
I like that.
yeah, it's a fast read. If you have a rainy day and just want to knock it out, you can knock it out in a day.
I like that.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't like getting bogged down when I'm reading a book.
I'm like that too. When I'm reading, I start to read and then I start losing my place.
Yeah,
And it's those long books. I'm like, God, I can't make it. So I like these shorter books. And I totally agree with that. Like a fast pace, get going on it, and you're like, wow, get
yeah.
right to the point. So I like that.
But we moved here to Michigan, and the area that we're living in is kind of they were not exactly right here, but not too far from about 40 miles from here. They were looking at putting in one of those solar farms. And everybody was complaining about, because they're not exactly pretty to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up not going forward with it. And the story is because it might interfere with the bigfoot that are in the area. So where we live now is we are off grid, and we are in the middle of nowhere. Um, we have this house. We're the only people that live back here full time.
That's
Uh,
awesome. That's my
all
dream
the other
someday when I retire, go way out off grid and live there, you know.
Well, we're not like 100 miles away, but you might as well be, because
Far enough. So,
yeah, the but we have a creek on the property, and it's like we have everything a Bigfoot would want here. I'm hoping that we're gonna have a sighting or something, and they're supposedly in the area. So
well, yeah, I heard a lot of
uh,
reports up in that area, a lot of activity and a lot of activity with these other creatures that they call a dog man, you know, and a lot of
I'm writing a
sightings
book
there.
about the dog man now.
All right, on. Yeah, because that's an interesting one too. I wasn't really big on Dogman until I started hearing more and more experience, especially Matt's experience and others, and I'm like, wow, okay, there must
Yeah.
be a connection going on here, and that's why I started
There,
opening
the
up.
the
So
dog man is kind of a strange animal.
it is. It's a little
There's so
freaky.
many theories behind it. Um, is it a like a Bigfoot kind of a thing where it naturally formed? Is a science experiment gone wrong?
Yeah,
You know,
some kind of
um,
hybrid or something. You
yeah.
know.
I've seen some interesting things on it. Um, I'm writing the story about the dog man. I'm writing is kind of like out of my realm, because I don't have any experience with it. I
Well,
like
you
to write
might
what
get
I
it there
know.
because it's a hot spot for dogmen up there where you're at. So that's why I was like wanting
Yeah,
to bring it up. I'm like, man, I heard a lot of dogman reports up there, and especially
yeah.
down here in Texas. And when I moved down here, they were telling me there was a hot spot up here, and I'm going, or down here, I should say. And I'm like, okay. And then late in the night, I'll go out and I hear strange, weird sounds, and I can't make out what they are, you know, because it's new to me in this area. So I'm still trying to get familiar with the big thicket near me. So it's pretty interesting
Trying to
over here.
figure out what animals made that noise, right?
Yeah, yeah. Sound like a
Yeah.
big owl if
We
that was an owl. That's all I can say
yeah,
there.
we yeah, I've kind of an avid outdoorsman all my life. I mean, I've camped, I've hiked, I hunted, and pretty familiar with the sounds that most big animals make. I've heard mountain lions, I've heard bears,
Mhm. Like
uh,
elk and all that, and
yeah.
so
Matter of fact, we have elk on the property.
yeah, I love those
Um,
animals. Beautiful animal right there.
yeah, and they taste good.
They do. They do. That's what I'm gonna miss about up there. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna miss those elk, but they're in certain areas around here. But you know, you have to drive a ways to hunt those. So, but yeah.
This is where we live, is the elk capital of Michigan, but
Oh yeah.
there's not that many. There's not that many elk here. Elk is uh, it's numbered in the hundreds here. So it's not thousands and huge herds.
Mhm.
I mean, the elk that I've seen here, I've spent like one or two. The biggest group of elk I've seen is like eight. So but it's still really cool to see them.
Oh yeah.
But so we first moved here. We've been here almost a year, and um, there have been some weird things that have happened here, but I can't really say that was a Bigfoot. I mean, there's been some smells, you know, that we do have a marsh on the property, but it doesn't stink. It's not one of those kind of muddy, stinky places. And then
I hear you there.
um, there's been a couple of nights where it sounded like something, slapped on the house, but that could have been a bat or an owl or something. But sometimes the cats we got in the yard, they're a little freaked out. So
Yeah. Yeah, I moved down here, and my dogs have been kind of different down here because they're used to the mountains, and then over here by the big thicket, they'll hear strange sounds and they'll flip out. I was out there one night relaxing, and they just look at this particular corner of my property out in the woods here. And oh, sorry, did I cut out there? Here I am.
no,
Okay, but yeah, I looked to the corner, and then they're all freaking out, aiming that way. It's right before sunset, and then I go to look over. I'm like, what are they freaking out all now? All of a sudden, I hear this big thump, 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 something running away. So I don't know what the hell that was. But the dogs didn't like it. So,
Yeah. Well, and Bigfoots don't really like dogs, from what I have read.
hmm
Um, so, but I've had, when I lived in Virginia, I lived up in the mountains of Virginia. And I had a friend of mine I worked with, and he told me he came home. It was like the next day. We're working there. He goes, last night I went home. It was dark, and the dogs are going crazy, and he says there was something in the bushes, and it wasn't a bear, and I don't know what it was, but it was smelling, and I'm like, holy crap. you know
yeah.
um and he was a Gulf War vet, and he said, I've seen a lot of things, but that scared me. you know we had a minister that him and his son saw a Bigfoot walk in front of him on the road up there in the national forest. And so it's kind of like they're everywhere, but you just don't hear about them that much. But Idaho, um, they even have signs up now in the woods. This is a known Sasquatch
hmm
area. Don't do this, don't do that. Kind of a thing.
Yeah, Oregon was doing the same thing, especially around the Hood River area and up around Mount Hood. They had certain signs, and people were like, "Ah, it's a joke," and I'm like, "I don't know if that's a joke or not." They're saying don't pay any attention to them. Just keep doing your thing, keep walking. And they did say take pictures if you can.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Well, there's just so many stories. And again, when we're doing the research for this book, and I was looking at all the different Native American stories. Those people have lived in the woods all their lives. They're, you know, and it's it's kind of funny if you've ever been like in an extended stay in the woods, camping or whatever. You become more in tune with what's around you. It's like you're plugged in. When you first, I know my experience is, I go camping. I never went to I don't like to go to campgrounds. I go to the forest, right?
hmm
So the first night or two is kind of getting used to, what was that? Oh, it was a cricket.
yeah,
The first couple of nights is just getting used to being in the woods, and then all of a sudden you pick up on when the noises of the woods don't sound right. You know, when a bear goes walking through, the noises of the woods change. Um, so I think that's the Native Americans, that's their, that was their life, before the reservations.
yeah,
So they have all these stories, and you kind of have to respect that, you
yeah.
know.
I definitely do. That's an interesting one there too, because I've seen a lot of people up there with in the reservation areas, and they'll tell you if just show them respect, they'll leave you alone. Yeah, you're gonna have some that are like us. They're gonna be some that are aggressive, some are kind, and in the middle. So
Yep. And and again, there's no official study guide for Bigfoot, right? It's
hmm
kind of like,
yeah,
uh, this could be happening, that could be happening, and one of the things I've read was, if there's one in the group that's uppity, not cooperating, they'll kick them out, and those are usually the ones that are creating all the problems.
yeah,
You know, uh, Kind of like a teenage angst, I guess. But in the book, it's a tribe. It's a tribe of Bigfoot, and they have a leader, um, and their purpose in this book is their mountain. They're protecting their mountain. They're protectors of the area, and they get the idea that the firefighters are damaging, they're harming their territory. Because what do firefighters do when they're fighting a fire? They're
hmm
cutting trees down, they're setting back burns, they're doing things that would look like they're destroying the property. And so this I have these firefighters fighting a fire, but then the Bigfoot tribe is fighting the firefighters.
yeah,
So it's kind of a little different dichotomy there. And we have a member of the firefighting crew is a Native American who's kind of left his native life and wants to be part of the white man's world, I guess is the words. And but his grandfather taught him all the native lore and the history, including the history of with the Sasquatch, and so he's kind of like putting things together. So it's there's a lot of cool stuff in the story. It's not just blood and guts, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that because you can kind of live in their, basically living in their foot, where they're going. Living in their life. What's their life like? Because we really don't know. What did
Mm-mm.
Bigfoot deal with? Out in the woods. Or what are they doing? Are they like us? They just kind of have families and hang out and go do their thing. Make sure they're staying up on their food and keeping away from humans. And you really start to think about it. It's like if they're out there. What are they doing?
Well, I know that we had, our property in Idaho, we had chickens.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a pretty bulletproof chicken coop. I had, we had a chicken run. It was completely fenced in, and the cover, it had a cover on it, and but I'd still find eggs from the chicken coop out of the chicken coop in the woods,
Interesting.
eaten.
Yeah.
And I would do a patrol around my chicken coop, make sure there's no like animals digging in, or did they find a way in the
Yeah.
loose wires. Nothing. So I'm you know I was like, well, something figured out how to get into the coop and get out of the coop without being noticed, you know and we ended up moving before but I thought about putting up a game camera on the chicken coop, to see if we could catch anything going in.
Yeah.
But that was crazy. I go out in the woods and I'm like, dang, here's a bunch of chicken eggs,
Mm-hmm. That's definitely like a life source right there for them. A lot of protein right there. Just crack it open, they take it. So
That's right.
yeah,
That's right. They didn't never take a chicken. It was always just the eggs. So that was kind of interesting. Again, I've read the stories where they'll grab chickens and pigs and whatever,
yeah, yeah. People
but
claim they'll grab their livestock and stuff like that. I believe that happens more in areas where they have less likely food sources. But up in Idaho and Oregon and all those dense forests, especially where you're at, I'm pretty sure there's abundance of food sources for them. Where they try
oh
to stay
yeah,
away from humans. And the ones sightings in deserts, they'll make you question that. Like what do they? If they're out there, what are they eating in the desert? And there's a lot of, I mean, guess snakes and lizards and
snakes
all
and
that stuff.
lizards,
Yeah, yeah. So,
cactus.
so there's ways. They know ways more than us, I believe, and I think we lost our way.
Oh yeah, I hear you
On
there.
food source. So, but yeah, I find that fascinating, and I love hearing that people are writing books on it, and living in their life. What are they living like? And I like that. So,
Yeah, well, we're kind of hoping that we're going to have some kind of event here. Hopefully it's calm. We don't want anybody, knocking the house down or anything like that. But
yeah,
but we kind of hope that we're in the area. We'd like to have some type of. I'm not going to encourage it. I'm not going to go out and like bait anything. Sorry, I'm checking my dog. We have a really bad tick problem in Michigan, so I'm checking her for ticks.
yeah. I've been keeping an eye on that myself. That's why I keep the grass mowed because I'm worried about my dogs getting them. And so far I've only found one, so it hasn't been that bad down here. But in Oregon, I was getting them all the time up there on the mountain there, and I had to pick them off them all the time. And
We
so
get. I'm probably picking 3 ticks a day off of her. We get them on us all the time, and you know, eh,
hmm
I've been around ticks all my life, so I don't worry about it too much. I just keep an eye on them. But
yeah, I
uh,
think the ones that are more dangerous are probably the ones more closer to wherever towns and stuff like that, because I guess that's a way to spread whatever disease they're carrying. And I've been bit
yeah.
by several before, and I'm still here, and I still eat meat, and all that. So,
Oh yeah, that's
so
crazy, isn't
yeah, I heard
it?
about that. I was like, man, that sounds like somebody created that tick there. I don't know, a little fishy to me.
It's well, I heard that it's when they created the vaccines for us, our age group. Um, the measles and the smallpox, that they created this gelatin to hold it in suspension, so it would be delivered in a certain time frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
And apparently this tick has an enzyme that reacts with that gelatin
Interesting. Yeah.
in an adverse way. No, they're not. I don't think they're using that gelatin anymore. It was like the old school vaccines, but
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. I heard somebody tell me that this past winter. I said that's got to be That's got to be a story. Somebody's just pulling my leg. Then I
Yeah.
read it. Oh, it's true.
Yeah,
Oh my
no, I
God.
thought the same thing too, and I guess it's spreading pretty good in where I can't remember the location, but there's an area where people are having a lot of problems with. I think down in I think maybe it was over in Georgia, in Alabama area. I can't remember, but it was getting real bad. Like they're all over you, all they're everywhere. I was like, oh man, I don't want to deal with
Ugh.
that.
Well, it's kind of
So
funny because I don't know what it is about my blood type, but if a tick bites me, they die. Um, I have, I used to go. We have a swamp in Virginia called the Dismal Swamp, and I would go canoeing in there, and I'd come out and I'd find ticks on me. Well, you know, you don't find them all, right?
yeah,
And I'd wake up in the morning, and I'm making the bed, and there's like two dead ticks in the bed, and I'm like, what? They're dead, you know.
yeah,
And
it's kind of
to this
interesting you say
day,
that. I've had found a couple on me, and they were dead. There was only two that my wife had to carve it out of me because I didn't even know it was there until I felt like an itch, and never had any reaction, didn't have Lyme disease or anything else. So I pay attention to the where it bites. If it spreads bigger, then you're like, oh, I better go in and get that checked out,
yeah, no kidding.
and just to be safe. But I know of ways of keeping them off you though. You can make your own home remedies. You take some lemon juice and put it in a spray bottle and you mix it with some other stuff that that they don't like some kind of oil-based peppermint, and mix it in, spray it on your clothes, and I tell you
We
what,
use that.
it works.
We use a product here called Bug Squatch.
There you go. There you go. That will work. You got to have that, especially out in the woods,
Yeah,
and so
it's all natural stuff, so
I love that because all that poison stuff is not good for us, and
no.
so it might keep them away, but it can make us sick. But anyhow, going back to the Bigfoot that you saw, I've heard stories about them looking like an albino Bigfoot, white and all that, and it's interesting
Yep.
because I've always found that fascinating, because it's if it's out there and it could be spotted. So I'm pretty sure that one tries to stay hidden and be more in the snowy mountains, so it could be more like hidden. And
You
what did
know,
you?
it's go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah, what I was gonna ask, did you get like a clear? How close was it from you to you? I forget what you
40
said.
about 45 yards.
Okay, okay. So, what was the first thing that came to your mind? You said it was a man. It looked like a man, maybe wearing a hoodie, but then you're moments later, like, wait a second,
Yeah.
what were you
It
thinking?
it well, again, I was like it's awful hot to be wearing a
Yeah,
hoodie. Um and then I could see the hair. And I'll give you kind of I helped design this cover.
I like
You can
it.
see the face is mostly hair free except for like the chin, but there was a little more hair on the face.
On the face, kind of
But
like in the mustache area, and okay,
didn't really have a mustache, but it
okay,
was more up in the cheek area.
gotcha. Okay,
But it it was kind of weird. It didn't look like an ape, and it didn't look like a man.
okay.
You know, it was somewhere in between. Um, and I think that's where some of the confusion comes from because there's nothing that really, there's no category in your brain that it fits into. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you there.
The average person that doesn't think about Bigfoot, okay, doesn't believe in, the possibility of Bigfoot. There's just no caveat for that. So they're going to put it into it's a monkey, it's escape from the zoo or is it
Hmm.
whatever. Um, but this there's actually a group of researchers, and I wanted to talk to them, but they're hard to get a hold of that are researching. They said there is a tribe of these Bigfoot in that area, and they've been able to track them. And I don't know what that means, but I don't know whether they've got really good photo evidence or what. But I wanted to talk to him, but I never did get a chance to. But um, once I determined it wasn't a bear, there was no other thing it could be but the Sasquatch.
Hmm.
You know, I did make my report to the BFRO as a good sighting should be reported.
Yeah.
Um, uh, that was an interesting process. But uh,
Did they ever respond to you or reach
They
out?
did.
Okay.
They did. It took a while.
Okay.
But I don't know whether it's because they get so many reports and there's, they don't have a lot of people on their staff, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, but it did. They took my report. Um, the funny thing was, I told you about my neighbor. He's like, I told him about everything. He's like, well, I don't believe. In this crap.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe 2 years later, 2 years had gone by. He had some friends that were looking for some property, in the area, and it was March, and there's still snow on the ground.
Yeah.
And they're looking at this area a little down the road from us, still at the base of HooDoo Mountain. And were driving up looking at lots, and they're seeing deer tracks and moose tracks. And one of the guys goes, "Yeah, and there's a Bigfoot track." And my neighbor's like, "Well, right, whatever." And he looks at this and he goes, "What the hell is that?" And he gets out. He says, "And there is these tracks. When a moose steps into the snow, they can elongate their track. They can make it longer, but it's always going to have a hoof in it. Okay, you're going to see a moose hoof. And here's these tracks." And he said they were a good 17 inches long, and it was a single file. Moose don't walk in single file. Yeah, but he said that's the only thing he could attribute it to, because that's how moose sometimes drag their feet. They can create a 17-inch track. He said, but there's four legs on a moose. So you're going to get a track and a track and a track, and you can pretty easily step from one track to the next, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said he had to jump from one track to the next. He said, and I got down and I looked in the bottom of the track, and it wasn't a hoof. He said it wasn't a moose. He says, I'm about 75% convinced there might be a Bigfoot in the woods.
Well, that's what's amazing is when people, like us, we know there's something out there. And there's people who are unsure, and there's people who go, ah. And a lot of times I call them concrete people that don't pay attention to what's going on in the woods and their surrounding, and paying attention to the details out there. 'Cause a lot of people just go hiking and they don't really look off trail. If you ever wonder, why do they make trails? It's like, are they keeping us on the trail so we don't know what's out there? you know, that's what I start
They
to
don't want
think
you to get,
about.
they don't want you to get lost.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
too. So,
this is not Bigfoot related, but I used to, hike in the national forest all the time, and I didn't go on hiking trails. I'd follow deer trails,
yeah, me too.
and that's where you're going to see stuff, right?
Hmm.
And so I had a couple of dogs, and we are walking these trails, and I got that sense that there's something different with the woods right now. That they're quiet. They're
Yeah.
not. About that time, I come across this little mud pond, probably 8 feet long by maybe 3 or 4 feet wide, and you can see on the surrounding trees and stuff. It's just mud splashed up all over it. So something
Oh,
got in there. Well, then I started looking. It was a bear, and he left his bear tracks. You know, but and it was still dripping, so he was really close. So we went the other way. You know, but if he weren't paying attention, he'd have walked right by that. He could have walked right up on a bear, and 9 times out of 10, the bear's not going to bother you. But that one time, you know, people disappear in the woods all the time.
they do. It could be anything going on with that. It could be wildlife taking you out, or they fell and got injured or hurt bad. There's a lot of stories that go with it, and some people think Bigfoot has something to do with it. Yeah, maybe some of it, but we're not sure what else is out there.
What was that guy? There was a guy, and this is, yeah, it was back in the 50s, and he was in the woods, uh, cutting firewood or whatever, and he claims he was picked up by a Bigfoot,
Oh,
and
yeah, I'm trying to remember what that one
and
was.
he was held captive for several days.
Isn't that the one where he
And
went gold panning or something like that? Or is that?
uh, he was in a sleeping bag, and they grabbed
Oh,
him.
oh yeah, I heard that story. I can't remember the name of him. Was it?
And yeah, he was. I heard the story from him. He recounted the tale. He was like 90 years old when he recounted the tale.
Yeah,
But
that
he
one's
said that
interesting. Yeah.
that the Bigfoot would leave and come back, and would rummage through his little rucksack he had, and they came across. He was making coffee. you had the coffee grounds, the old timers, how they used to make the coffee, and you'd have to have the coffee grounds separate so you wouldn't get them in the coffee. Well, the, he had, you had to filter it. Well, he said the Bigfoot came in and was curious as to what he was drinking and grabbed it, grounds and all, and scarfed it down. And he was choking on it so bad, took off running. Well, that's when he made his escape. So,
I
yeah, I
remember
mean,
that
I've
story.
heard, there was a recent story about a little boy who was lost,
Oh, I heard that one. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
and he said that a family of apes took care of him, kept him safe. You know, so who knows?
Yeah. You know,
Who knows?
that's interesting because I think I heard that story too, where he was lost for a little while and gone, and they thought something for sure he was gone, but then he came
Hmm.
back like fine looking, like he's been eaten and stuff like that and taken care of. So, but yeah, that's an interesting one right there. I hear stories like that all the time too, where people, you know, disappear and they come back out and they say, "Well, I'll tell you what, something helped me out there, man. I don't know what it was because they were real sick, and it helped them back to health and they made it out." But with all these people disappearing, anything's possible. I mean, it could be predators taking them out. You're taking a wrong turn. It's easy to get, like you said, it's easy to get lost in the woods if you go off that
But
trail.
the thing about predation is there's usually evidence of that.
Hmm.
Um, there's going to be bones, it's going to be whatever. Um, the and it sounds like you spend quite a bit of time in the woods too, but there's I'll go walking in the woods and you'll find a deer bone.
Exactly. Yep. Oh, did I lose you? Let's see here. All right. We'll wait a minute for you to pop back up, Mark. If you can hear me, you're gone. Um, Let me see what's going on here. Looks like I lost connection with him. Here he is. Hold on a second. There you are.
I
You're
mean,
back. Yep.
anyway,
Probably lost
so
connection there, huh?
yeah, well, we don't have great cell connection out here.
Oh, I hear
Uh,
you. It happens.
we we have Starlink, and that's our lifesaver, but
I
it's
got the same
still.
thing right now, and it does a lot better than what I was using before because I had the same issue. I'll lose it. I'm like, oh no, I lost it.
Well, at
So
least I'm technically savvy enough to know what buttons to push. But
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, you go walking in the woods, you'll find a leg bone.
yeah, yeah.
You'll find a skull. You'll find, and not necessarily all in one place. So if it's predation, after whatever's preyed on you, the coyotes are going to come in and take the rest, and they're going to take pieces of you everywhere. And there are areas people can't get to, so I can see bones being there and not being found. But I've been in some of the most densely bear populated areas. I've never seen a dead bear in the woods.
Hmm. I hear
I
you
never found
there.
it. I never
Yeah,
found a skull. I never found anything that a bear had died. And they die.
yeah.
You
That's a
know,
good point because people say, "Why haven't we found a skeleton remain of Bigfoot?" I go, "Well, maybe they have, and then they hide that evidence because once the government finds that, they're like, oh, we're taking that from you, and that person's got a hush hush." 'Cause I heard stories like that. Or,
yeah.
they bury their own and they make it hard for you to find, and that's possible too. And I believe Bigfoots do, or you want to call them
There's
Sasquatch, but yeah,
stories that after Mount St. Helens erupted, that there were crews that actually saved Bigfoot
yeah.
that were hurt. Um, but that stuff never makes the news.
No,
And
I get people telling me, "Oh, that's never happened." I go, "I don't know. There's some people that say they were there and they seen it and it did happen. They saved some. There was one walking with a group of, firefighters or actually, I don't know, special military or whatever they are at that time, and people say,
but
"Oh, it's just stories." I go, "I don't know. I've heard people that I witnessed it, that were up there helping." So,
well, I mean, my story is just a story, but it happened. You
yeah,
know, um,
yeah.
whether, and I've got family members that are like, yeah, whatever, Mark,
I hear you there. I got
But
people that like to, give me a laugh here and there, and I go, well, you just haven't opened your mind and seen anything yet. I mean, I tell them this: open your mind, look around you, look up at the sky, look around in the woods. You'll see all kinds of strange things that you didn't realize was there. Because you're too busy with work every day, working and doing your daily tasks. You don't go out and do your thing and look around, and people don't do that. They just got life going on. Work, 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 and then they do little fun things on the side, like watching sports or something like that. It's like go out in the woods for a while, relax and
yeah,
pay attention.
get away from the light pollution.
Yeah, and then you'll be surprised. I've seen UFOs. I've seen possible Bigfoot across the canyon. I've seen evidence of them. I've seen structures built by them, and very very fascinating structures down in the canyon. It's, I mean, nobody could go down there and build them. They're huge. They're probably like, I'd say about 15 feet high, and they were big, massive logs, all like a teepee style. And that
That's
blew me
cool.
away. So, and I have a couple
Well,
footage of that, but I can't find them right now. I gotta look at my old phone. But
well, that Hoodoo Mountain, there's a lot of UFOs speculation up there, and
yeah, I heard.
um, the one night, sometimes I don't sleep real sound. I wake up at the slightest little something's going on, and I looked out the window and there was this light, and it was probably only about maybe a couple hundred feet up in the air, and it was flying. No strobe lights, just drifting, and then it would shift this way, then it would go like this, and I watched it for 15-20 minutes, and it then all of a sudden it just goes zip, gone. You know, I've seen when we lived up in Paradise on Lake Superior. Um, we had a lot of weird stuff up there. I woke up in the middle of the night one night hearing this noise. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's
what's that?
weird. Yeah.
And I look out because our house was right on the lake. I look out, and about 300 yards out and about 50 feet up, there's this light going, whoa, 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 off it went.
I've
And the
heard a lot
funny
of
thing
reports
was,
like that where they're pulsating back and forth, and it's just like gets bright and dim, and then they jet off. I've heard a
yeah,
lot of stories like that.
I was telling somebody about that, and they said, the funny thing was, we said, when was that? And I told them, they said, I was at the hardware store, and so came in, and he was telling me the same story.
Yeah,
So it
it's
wasn't
funny how
just
that
me.
works. You see the same thing, or people saw the same thing because they happen to be looking up. And that
Hmm.
happened a lot in Oregon. We've seen weird things flying around like Z shape and then shooting off, and a lot of activity if you pay attention, looking up, away from those, like you say, light pollution. Get away from that. Look up.
But
You'd be
the
amazed.
weirdest story in that realm. I know this is really off the
No,
subject,
let's
but
hear it. I love to hear it.
I was uh, I was working for an auto glass replacement company as their sales rep, and this trucker comes in, and he's got what they call a split windshield. That's two pieces of glass, right? Well, windshield is a piece of glass with a piece of vinyl between another piece of glass. So if something hits it, it doesn't shatter and fall into your lap. It stays together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at his windshield, and it's completely shattered, like if you ever had your door glass broken and it breaks in these like little cubes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looked like. And I've never seen a windshield that was broken like that.
Wow.
And I asked the guy, I said, "What'd you hit?" And he goes, "Nothing." I said, "Really? How'd you break your windshield?" He says, "You're not going to believe me." I said, "Well, tell me."
Like, let's hear it.
Well, we had a little town in the mountains called Monterey, which is, uh, if you sleep, sneeze, you're going to miss it, right? But there's a town before called McDowell, and he was driving a load in late at night, and everything was closed. So he pulled into this grocery store parking lot uh, to sleep, the night away. He says, I pulled into the parking lot, and it's pitch black dark, and all of a sudden this light goes and illuminated the whole area, like somebody was had a spotlight up in the air. He says, I'm looking up. He says, I can't see anything. It's so bright, I can't see anything. But then all of a sudden the light goes out, and when the light went out, my windshield went cracked up. He says, and I'm looking up there. He says, I'm seeing the stars, but then they're disappearing and reappearing. He says, there was something floating by. He said it was triangular in shape and it floated by. It was blocking out the stars, and then it would hit it would drift away and hit a spot. He said there was no noise, nothing. It wasn't a helicopter. It was just dead quiet. He said and you'd see this light would come down and illuminate and then disappeared. A little while later, he's boom, like it was looking at stuff. And when I looked at his windshield and I got up there, there was no impact. Like there was nothing that hit his glass. And you can feel, if something's hit the glass, and you can see uh, if it was like an edge, like a bird sometimes will hit the edge of your windshield and break your windshield. You can see where that damage is on the edge. Nothing. It was smooth. It was just all the glass just shattered. And
Wow.
then so that was kind of freaky,
That is a
you
freaky
know.
one right there.
Well, and I had one of my customers that I had gotten in that business was there's a Navy listening post in Sugar Grove, West Virginia, and what they listen for is nuclear testing from other countries. The acoustics in that area are really good for their equipment to pick up the sounds of you know weapons testing all over the world. But the guy leaned forward and he said,
Oh, lost Mark again. That's what happens when you live out and off grid, man. Oh, well, he'll be back in a minute here. So, 1 second here, guys. Let's see here. I'll pop back in a minute. Be sure to get his book, guys. Reach out to Mark Peak on Facebook and reach out, and he'll hook you up with a book. And it looks like he's coming back. There you are. Yep.
so, but anyway, uh, where was I? Forgot.
Oh, you were getting into
Oh,
uh,
so he
yeah.
says the number one thing we listen for up here is UFOs.
Yep.
He says we get a lot of UFO action up here. And I was like, really? There's a U.S. Navy in the middle of the mountains of Virginia listening for UFOs.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, that happens
yeah.
to be coming out more and more now. People are like, all right, so there is something going on. I mean, let's just say this is an actual world and there's space. And if it's all real, there's got to be other life form out there. Unless we're inside some kind of glass jar and it's just us with, other things, but I believe there is
Well,
other life out there.
I've always said God is a creative being.
He
I
is.
doubt very seriously he created man and said, I'm done.
Mhm.
You know, he wouldn't have created the universe that he created with all the wonderful things to see out there, the planets and what, without creating another, I, he's eternal. I can't imagine him just stopping.
Yeah, I think he
So,
creates things and then he realized he made some mistakes creating certain things that he was probably not proud of, but he still loved them all, his creation. Um,
well,
so
I don't know if he made a mistake, but he gave us free will and then we
yeah,
make the mistake.
yep. I think that's why they say we're like in God's image. That He created a being like Him, like here we are. We're basically in His image, and all these other things are something else that He created, close to His image but different. And I think some of them might be jealous of us because we are in His image and been saved. And it makes you wonder because you see these other life forms supposedly trying to interfere with us, and what they call the reptilians and the greys and all these other things you hear about. I find it
Yeah,
fascinating because, like, what is that? What's going on with that?
hmm
So
yeah, it, you know, so I'm going to do a book plug for you.
yeah, let's hear it.
So um, when when we were living in paradise, after I'd written the hoodoo book, hadn't gotten it published yet. So do you know Cindy Ann Goodbreak?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so uh, I had watched one of her little posts, and she's the one who actually put me in contact with Hanger One Publishing, who got me published in the Hoodoo book. She was writing a book called Hoodoo as well. So I feel bad. I beat her to the punch to get that book, title.
yeah.
But
She's a great woman. I'm gonna have her on a show here soon too. She's been on here before, but I'm definitely gonna reach out and bring her on too. She's
yeah,
really
I
cool.
love Cindy.
Yeah,
She's a good girl.
yeah.
So
Go ahead.
I was looking and I said, is there a cryptid around Lake Superior? I know there's dogmen and I know there's Bigfoot in the area, but is there something different? You know, well, I found there is a cryptid that's supposed to live in Lake Superior. It's called the Mishipishu. Um, it's or translates into water panther. If you go online and type that in, you'll get artist renditions of what this thing looks like. Um, so, in kind of poking around doing some research for that book, I wanted to know. It's supposed to be a protector of the lake. You know, if you're doing stuff, you're not like polluting or poaching or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take you out. And so I did some research and I found out that Michigan has one of the country's highest missing persons, number of missing persons per year.
Wow.
It's like 58 go missing in the state of Michigan every year on average. Most of those are in the UP. Now, if you've ever been to the UP, it's understandable. It's a lot of rugged, swampy, mountainy, whatever, and very little population. So if you get in trouble, you can disappear. So I just did a little bit of, you know, writers, rights and just turned it into the Mishipishu victims. So I wrote a book. It's called Winter Kills, Death Lurks in Paradise.
Oh, wow.
So again, brings in Native American lore. Uh, it's it's what's interesting about the book is every business that's in that town of Paradise is in this book and the people that run the business. So it's one of those things. If you're going to get your book signed, you can go to the different businesses and get the people that are in the book to sign it too.
Yeah.
Um, but that was a fun book to write. But Hoodoo is going to be my baby because that's an actual experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but anyways, that's my cheap, plug for.
Well, we get into your books. Tell people where they can reach you or find them, and
Well,
get some of those books.
the books are available anywhere you can buy a book. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Books a Million. I mean, I've even looked at some of the local mom and pop bookstores, and they're in their computer catalog, but they're not necessarily on the shelves. And Hanger One is the publisher. You can get them directly from the publisher as well.
That's awesome.
So, um, so there's the Hoodoo book, and
Yeah.
if you type in Hoodoo, you're never going to find this book because apparently there's a kind of a voodoo religion called Hoodoo, and there's about 2,000 books on that. So when you type in Hoodoo, you'll find my book somewhere on the 25th page of your search. So you want to type in MC Peak, and it pops right up. Both those books will pop right up.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, so it's you can search through by author name, um, and I'll you can buy directly from me as well. I usually keep books on hand, and if you buy from me, I sign them.
That's
Put a
awesome.
little note in there, that kind of a thing. Make it a little personal. Um, uh,
Well, how do they
it's
go about that? They just reach out to you on Facebook, or do you got a particular way of people reaching
yeah.
out?
Reach out, and Facebook is probably the easiest thing.
Okay.
Bryce Edwards, you might know Bryce. Um, he's got the Pond Creek
Yeah.
Monster.
That's the last episode
Okay.
just released. Yeah.
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 He reached out to me, and so I got him the signed copy of the book. And yeah, if Facebook, just friend me, and then we can go Messenger and go that route.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I don't charge you for the postage because you can mail literature pretty cheap.
That's awesome.
It's
I'll be
yeah.
reaching out
So
to you soon too and get one myself, so that's for sure.
well, I'll get you a copy. You just give me your address on Messenger. I'll get you a copy.
That'd be awesome.
So
Well, I really enjoy having you on here, Mark. Was there anything else you'd like to share with us?
no, I appreciate you having me on and give me an opportunity to tell my story and plug a book or two, and it's been great.
All right, it's been an honor to have you on, and I can't wait to check out your Dogman book you're going to be working on too. That's going to be interesting, especially up
Well,
there. That's a hot spot for him. So
there's an area up here called the Delirium Wilderness, and it's called the delirium wilderness because people get lost in there and they lose their mind, and the rumor is because it's such a high concentration of methane gas that people
Oh wow. Yeah.
get. But and there's quicksand in that swamp.
Oh, that'd be
So it's
scary.
called
So
Terror in the Wilderness, I'm actually writing it for my grandkids because my grandkids would talk, go to school and say, my grandpa wrote a book, and the kids are like, yeah, right,
hmm
so so I decided to write this Dogman book, and I put all the grandkids in it, and so the dedication will have their actual names in it, so they can go tell their tell their kids, their friends, see, I told you.
yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
but the Dogman stuff is researching that. That's been pretty cool too. So,
Yeah, I've been getting into it myself. I'm trying to reach out to some other people who had Dogman experience too, and I have Matt Imsh on the show, and he has Planet 412. I'm not sure if you checked him out or not.
yeah,
And
yeah, I'm familiar with that.
yeah, he was one of my first guests way back then before he was getting on the other platforms, and it was probably the best Dogman encounter I ever heard, and it had me on my toes. I'm like, whoa, what the heck? He's very detailed on it, and you could tell he's got it in his painted in his mind, and still could tell you could still see it, what it looked like,
Yeah.
and that blown me away right there.
Well, the difference that I see between the Dogman and the Bigfoot is Bigfoot seems to be a little bit more on the I don't like to say friendly side, but more friendly than the Dogman.
Yeah, the
The
Dogman's
dog,
pretty interesting because some people think there's three different types, and they think there's like three different types of Bigfoots too. But I don't know, maybe there is. I mean, I do hear stories of red ones and dark brown ones, and uh, red ones are aggressive, they say. So you hear all kinds of stories. But like you
well,
said earlier, you don't know. You really don't know. So
if you familiar with the red haired giants that were, I think it's the Paiutes. So they used
yeah,
to
yeah,
they used to hunt they used to hunt them, and the red haired giants would eat them.
yeah.
So, um, so there you go.
I've heard that story. I'd love to get somebody on to talk about that one because that one's pretty interesting. Because I remember watching I think it was like a little documentary on it, and that was fascinating because they actually found evidence in the cave that these beings were huge, and
Yeah,
what are they? Were they just
they found moccasins
yeah?
that they'd made out of reeds.
And you know what's weird too? They just talked about a part. I gotta find that story and I'll have to send it to you. They found an area in the Grand Canyon. I'm sure you might have heard something about where they shut it off from people where they can go, and they found supposedly giants in there. That kind of look like those, the red haired giants. So that's
Well,
interesting too.
there are stories all over the world about archaeologists unearthing giant bones,
Yeah,
and then they disappear. You
exactly. Because
know,
I've had a friend tell me that up I think it was over in Montana somewhere. I'm thinking I might be wrong, but he told me that there was a neighbor that found like human-like remains, but they were huge. He said it was probably like
Mhm.
15 feet long or something like that. And I'm like, what? And then he said when the guy reported it, they came in and he showed them, and then they left, and then the remains were gone, and he didn't know what happened. He's like, I didn't take the remains. Somebody took it off my property. It had to been them. So
Well, they're getting back to the Bible. I mean, there's giants in the Bible, and Goliath, there's a giant, um, and I believe that there is for lack of a better term, a force that doesn't want the truth to get out,
hmm
and trust the science, so to speak.
yeah,
Um, and if they were to date these bones and realize that they're not maybe as old as they thought they were,
yeah. I
that
mean, some
there
people
might.
still get reports of seeing giants walking around in the woods, and it's not just Bigfoot. They're seeing these other things too, and it does make you wonder because I'm sure you understand like the Bible story of the Nephilim. That's what I think they would
Yep.
call them, the Nephilims, and
Yep.
yeah. So
So it's anything that corroborates the Bible is probably something that they don't want to
mm-hmm, yeah,
put out there.
they cut a
So
lot of it out,
they
unfortunately.
did. They did.
So, but
All
but
right,
us
sir.
believers,
Well,
But yeah, I really enjoy having you on, and I'll keep in touch with you, and I'll message you on that book too. So, and
Sounds good.
I really enjoy having you on, and I'll have this released probably in a week or so. So I'll let you know.
Sounds good. I appreciate it, Blake. Thanks for your time. I
Yeah, thank you
appreciate you
for your
having me
time.
on.
You have a great one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, guys, that was an awesome show. I really enjoyed having Mark Peak on the show. Be sure to reach out to him if you want your own signed copy of the HooDoo Mountain book, and I think you'll probably enjoy it. And I'd love to have him back on to talk about the Dog Man stuff too, the book that he's writing, just to help him out getting his shown out there. See, I love that, having guests like him coming on, write books about their experience and what happened, and then it makes stories on it because they're living in it, trying to figure out what these things are. And I think it's important that people know what they are and keep it documented. The book is basically a document of what you experience. So I really enjoy having Mark on, and I hope you guys enjoy the show. So, big, huge favor from me, guys. Share the show. Please share the show with your friends, your family, whoever that would enjoy Mountain Man Explore the Truth. I try to keep it kid friendly too, and keep the curses out of there and there. So I do my best with that. Might have a slip here and there, but that's okay. It happens. So I'm gonna be working on some live shows too to share with you guys some special guests. I'm gonna be probably doing a show with Rye here. Probably gonna be a live show, I think, if I remember right, with Rye. So be sure to stay tuned for that. It'll probably be already done actually, if I think about it, because I think we're doing that this Sundays. So it's pointless to tell you guys now. But anyhow, you can go back and check it out because it's already been on live. So. Anyways, guys, please subscribe on YouTube and on listening platforms. Be sure to hit the follow button. That would be awesome. So I really appreciate your guys' help. And until next time, let's explore the truth together. Take care, my friends.